A very warm welcome to our second session in the Unlock of the Power of Prolaborate related to some industries. Today, we'll talk about a little bit about the energy sectors. Give a short introduction about the presenters. My name is Peter Lieber. I'm CEO of Sparx Systems in Europe, and my colleague Nizam is Director for Enterprise Solutions at Sparx Systems. So you may have seen already activities around G-Radio or solutions. So Nizam is the guy behind. So it's a good chance to see also and hear about his thoughts and in which direction it goes. So I will start. And to unlock the power of Prolaborate, so maybe you have heard about Prolaborate, but I know that not everybody knows it so far. Prolaborate is an extension, or it's a separate product, but it extends enterprise architects' capabilities by making models more attractive to non-modelers. So that's the easy story, and the long story, of course, you can see later. There are more topics, but this will be elaborated by Nizam. But it's a very powerful capability for people who know a lot about enterprise architect and want to share it with the others. And Prolaborate is the correct answer to give in this domain. Today we will focus a little bit on the energy sector. So I have brought with me some hot topics from energy sectors that we have collected from customers. I will elaborate some a little bit more in detail, others just by headlines. And then we will also have an overview of the standards for the energy sector that are implemented in enterprise architect already by various user groups or even standardization organizations or by research and academia, maybe some a little bit longer ago, but this is still a valid world. And then we talk about possible solutions, and of course we will have also some live session from Nizam later. Of course, there will be room also for Q&A. So it's not very typical that we were just discussing about, from our perspective, about specific domains. So it was quite a hard work to identify which company, which customer from us is related to energy sector. But we have collected quite a lot of feedbacks from the market over the last 1 year or something like that, and have now some clear information that why is at the end enterprise architect a possible solution. So if you're just discussing about energy transition, decarbonization, it's maybe not that clear why you should use enterprise architect for that purpose. But the good news is, yes, of course, it makes a lot of sense to have models. And enterprise architect is one of the favorite modeling tools for a lot of people, luckily for us, and because it allows also sometimes, if you want, to break some rules, meaning having cross-model relationships. And I think this is a very powerful capability of enterprise architect that you can decide to stay not only in one modeling language, but also transist to others down to a low-level information that you want to address. Today, I will go to discuss a little bit more about energy transition and decarbonization, smart grid and IoT integration, and why it is bound together somehow, that IoT is a very valuable and extension for smart grids, of course. Then we have the topic cybersecurity and resilience. We have a lot of challenges, as you especially see also in the Ukraine-Russian war, that, and also in Asia, in the Israel whatever war, because there are 8 neighbors of Israel fighting against Israel. So it's not that easy how this will end up, but I hope it will. I have no hopes at the moment. But cybersecurity resilience is very important, especially for energy sector. We have seen that this is a very, especially in winter time, a very vulnerability for a country, and therefore it's very important to find a way how to deal with cybersecurity. Of course, it's all about regulatory compliance and governance. You want to have clean energy and we want to have safe energy if you go to nuclear reactors and so on and so forth. So it was a huge discussion in the European Union about if atomic or nuclear reactors are green or not from the point of view of waste they produce during production. Okay, if we go in the direction of how long it takes to save the waste, it's 100,000 years. I'm not so sure if this is only clean. But it is a good answer, of course, of the energy transition. We need more and more energy, and this is, yeah, there is no better solution for France. For Austria, we have the solution because we have a lot of water, but so it depends a little bit on countries. Also for Norway and the Nordic region, I was really positively surprised. So in Norway, there is a lot of oil, but they don't need it for energy. They just export it because in the 70s, when there was an oil crisis, they invested quite a lot into wind plants. And this was also where we can learn after 50 years quite a lot about how to transform a country to a more green energy. Of course, we have the topic of digital transformation and innovation. Innovation is a very important topic because we still need new ways of produce energy. Maybe there is some solutions and answers already. I have discussed with physics about this. So we are nearby a new form of energy production, but it's still a way to go. Then, of course, asset management, lifecycle management. If we go to smart meter, then we have the challenge that it's nice that we are in the households already with an IoT device to control somehow the activities of a household within minutes, or if minimum in Austria is 15 minutes, I think, but you have a measurement that is kind of real life in relation to the past. Then, of course, you want to become more efficient and have a cost optimization. There's a market pressure on it because we have free markets in Europe related to energy. And this is also a thing that you want to have addressed. And of course, one of the big challenges is also interoperability and standardization, you can imagine. If we go to energy transition and decarbonization, I think there is a huge push towards sustainability, renewable energy sources, and we want to reduce carbon emissions. I think maybe this is a very European story because we have seen that the emissions in Europe are already going down, and sometimes we have the feeling that we in Europe try to save all the world, but this is not feasible. But we try to do our best to give some positive impact and influence on that, what is going on there. So it requires a shift from traditional energy system to more greener, decentralized models. Decentralized models could be a household having their own solar panels and producing their own energy, but the net is not there, and you cannot grow it unlimited to have a decentralized system, but you have to find a way to go there over the time, but the faster the better. With Enterprise Architect, we provide some nice capabilities how to model that. So enterprise architecture, of course, is one of the major answer to define the transition, to make gap analysis, to make the infrastructure modeled, also how to integrate renewable energies, and also some simulation about this. What is the impact? Of course, simulation can be done within Enterprise Architect, or you can use the math model from MATLAB Simulink as well, but it's integrated in your models. And you can make different scenarios. I think this is also a very important aspect of Enterprise Architect, especially for enterprise architecture management. And let me imagine, very often people try to just model their current situation, but I think more important to have an accurate current version is to build a possible future. And where, when not in energy sector, this is more and more important. It is not enough to model what is, but what should be and what could be, and to be is the scenario we should have a look into. And just one short idea around it: want to be is not enough. So we need scenarios. We need more possible to be's, and we need this open discussion that not every energy vendor, not every power plant vendor is doing it themselves. So I think standardization with these models is a huge thing where we can bring our thoughts together into a common structure and model and find maybe a good to be solution for at least Europe, but maybe also for the world. We still believe that oil and gas is not an unlimited resource. If we think in hundred thousands of years, yes, then we have used it almost the last 200 years dramatically, and it will not last for 100,000 years until we have it reproduced by plants and trees again. So we will have to find for the demand of energy other solutions. I'm not sure if windmills are the best ones. So around my house, I have two interesting scenarios. I'm near to Höfleiner Senke. It's up in Lower Austria, in 3,000 meters below my house. I have not known that, but since 70 years there is a gas depot, and I think at 3,000 meters deep depth. And around my house there are a lot of windmills, and I can't see the gas, and I can't see how it is transported. But the windmills are really huge, and if you imagine there is I think a 300-meter high windmill. I'm not sure if this is the one and only answer. Windmills in the North Sea, I'm really impressed. There is no issue for people. I think almost no issue for the sea. So we are still on the way to find out other solutions. But again, you can model it, you can plan it, and you can also compare it. And a tree radar will allow to make this portfolio management capability align various energy products with sustainability goals, innovation, more usable. For the smart grid story, the smart grid story is the opposite of credit. No, not opposite. It's not true, but it's about the consuming the energy. So meaning if we have a lot of energy, e-cars and so on, and again, it's my personal opinion, then we have a storage of energy already at home. So if we have a good strategy, and at the moment in Europe, it's already allowed, but in the past it was not allowed, that you get the energy for your house from the car. I think there are Chinese producers of cars that have started with that and did not get the allowance to import or export to Europe, but now it's changed because it was able not only to consume energy, but also to spend and provide energy. I think this is one of these intelligence thoughts, because the car is not used all day, and it's used maybe for 20 to 40 kilometers in average for each household, and then it's just standing somewhere. And if it's usable or an additional source or storage for energy, we could have a very complex, very decentralized logic. It's a change of mind of everybody who should do it. But we should think about it, and of course we need advanced metering infrastructure. That is one of the parts of the story. In Europe and Austria especially, we have a very strange law that says all 10 years the energy measurement must be changed. And this is a waste of money from my perspective, but that's the law, because it needs almost 10 years to replace for all households the energy meters, and then you have to start again because it's by law you have to change it. So I'm not sure what happens with that waste. So we have to also change somehow the law or the general principles and understandings. Why in the past it was maybe clever to do that, but maybe nowadays it's not that clever. From a cybersecurity perspective, we can think about, but we have to think about new way of smart grids and IoT integration. So not only energy production, but also consume how to consume it is a topic. In this relationship, IoT, it's somehow low level, so we can call it, I think what I have learned, it's still HTTPS protocol used, but so it's not, it's a vulnerability itself, all certificates, trusted devices, not a dedicated network. So we have also to think about protocols. There is a new project in banking sector, what I addressed last week, where we have proprietary protocols not based on TCP/IP, but using, of course, not the layer 7, but using layer belows. So that is not hackable. So hacking of TCP/IP protocols, or especially high-level TCP/IP protocols, is an easy game. But and it's easy to implement because everybody can use HTTPS. Every developer almost is like a fingertip, but you can think about new protocols because the bandwidth is big enough, the lines are there, and of course you can use more modern ways to synchronize or to have a better encrypted network, maybe proprietary ones based on the infrastructure we have already, just as an idea, because there is a research project going on in this domain. It's called Genere IoT, where we are working together with Infineon and others, X-Room, with radiation and so on. And I think these ideas and investments into innovation, especially in this domain, could be a game changer in turn towards cybersecurity as well. Real time is a topic, but I said real time before is sometimes only 15 minutes. But real time is much better than in the past when you have every year a measure point. It's much better, but of course we can have real time, meaning in the moment. But the network, the IP network is not there. But of course we can use the energy network also for transporting of IT. There are also some projects already there and also rolled out already. And of course, we can use if you have this high-level planning of a net and the smart grid, we also can go down to a low-level planning for the IoT integration and to identify also long-term operational goals. I said already in energy sector for nuclear waste, there are models that have to be reliable, resistable, and documented that in a way that it can be understood in 100,000 years. I think mankind is old 600,000 years. I'm not an expert for that, but something like that. And we are talking about models that should last 100,000 years. And imagine a computer 40 years ago to reactivate it, how hard it is. And these people are dealing with models that have to last more than 100,000 years. Cybersecurity is a huge topic. We are also involved in research activities around cybersecurity and resilience. And it's like an never-ending battle between attackers versus defenders. But I think to have an awareness for risk and security modeling, and also for a strategy how to deal with it. And if you just ignore it, you are lost. That's for sure. If you're using an old system and industry systems from the 60s, because a lot of nuclear reactors are planned with that way of technology, industry technology, and you just have a proxy with an IoT device, you can be sure within 10 minutes somebody can take over control. So you have to think about also these old power plants that have old control system, old industries, how to make them cybersecurity and resilience against any kind of attacks. In the past, the attack was visible because an enemy was coming as a person or with a tank or whatever, or with a plane flying over. This was the past, but nowadays attackers are inside the building already. They are in your systems already. So you have to be careful in a very different manner. And of course, this is a challenge that will last. And of course, this discipline is not that old. Maybe it's old, but not that visible old. And the issue is find an expert or find enough experts to deal with that security. I am not a hacker. I have no clue about hacking, but I have seen somebody and I know what they're talking about, and it's a very different way of thinking. And I think in the cybersecurity domain, you must be very aware of possible. And must know both sides. You have to be think like a hacker and then find a strategy to be at least on the same level. One interesting discussion I had recently was about artificial intelligence hacking. If the defender is using artificial intelligence and the attacker is using artificial intelligence, then this battle is an undefined result. So if you bring human mind into the system, then you have even a chance to find a way to defeat. So one of the interesting topics, I do not understand why very traditional Cybersecurity methods like pen testings are more popular, and the Excel-driven approaches are more popular at the moment because I think it's a very linear approach, and it's of course there's a lot of automation, but a threat model, or meaning the strategy of having a threat model as a strategy how to defeat it. And threat modeling is a technique that is also 20 years old, but it's not very popular because it's effort. And typically, if you have an incident, people say, "Oh, it would be clever for the next time to be better prepared with a threat model, or even more threat models to even identify your assets, identify possible attack paths, and so on and so forth." But I don't understand why companies or C-level do not understand that they should follow these ideas and not feel safe after such an attack, because after an attack is before the next one. And threat modeling is a very good strategy if you keep it accurate to have a good understanding about your own systems. So not to lose too much time about talking, and we want to see some real things, I have just elaborated some additional topics that should be addressed with enterprise architecture management in Enterprise Architect. So again, regulatory compliance and governance, the digital transformation and innovation, we see a little bit more about this later. Then the asset management, lifecycle management. So it's not an one thing, it's an ongoing thing. So don't resist in the as is. Think more about the to be. You want to have operational efficiency and cost optimization. In the past, the energy sector was really near government, but becoming better. And interoperational standardization, I missed here sustainability development goals. So the last slides before I hand over to Nizam. There are some standards in energy sector already implemented in Enterprise Architect. So the Common Information Model is one of the very popular international standards used. Of course, based on that, there is an automation of substation. There is a standard for it. The standards like Acemate, BPMN, but I'm really proud, we have an Austrian vendor who implemented the smart grid architecture model. So the SCAM toolbox, there is also huge information beside it. And there are some early adapters, still early adapters. The implementation, I think, is already 8 years old, but it's still accurate. It's based on Industry 4.0. It's the SCAM cube. So really a good strategy how to elaborate, especially in energy sector smart grids. Then we have this North American Energy Standards Boards. They even provide an enterprise architect model. I tested it out before. If it is still there, yes, it is. It's still in heap file format, but it's automatically transformed by enterprise architect. If you have a new version to the new QEA file, it's automatically done. Then we have the NIST framework for smart grid interoperability standards, so interoperability related things. And of course, it's a political thing, the sustainability development goals, but I think as a company, you should definitely have an eye on it. It is a little bit high level, maybe these 17 sustainable development goals, and the EU Green Deal is also based on them, but you can downscope it also to your company's level and downscope to each employee in your organization. I think it's a major mindset change, and I'm really proud that we have a kind of solution about this already in one of our provided solutions. And now I hand over to Nizam and come back later after his sessions. Nizam, please take over.
Thanks, Peter. That was a very extensive heads up and intro. I'm just going to take a deep dive with Prolaborate in perspective. So what Peter described here is the overarching problems and challenges that the energy sector is kind of facing or being confronted with, and how to tackle them. I'm just going to take the part of it which focuses on achieving certain use cases related to energy sector and broadly for enterprise architecture as well, using Prolaborate. And this will be, these are the three things that I'm going to be touching on. I'm going to quickly start with an introduction to what Prolaborate is, because it's been part of the Sparx systems suite of offerings for the last couple of years, but we still believe there are quite a large number of our users who have built really valuable models, but not have explored the options of publishing it and taking it to the larger audience. I'm going to start with a quick intro of Prolaborate, and I'm going to touch on the common enterprise architecture use cases that we have seen that like that even in the energy sector uh, firm has been focusing on. But then there were a few instances where there were some specialized use cases, especially around ESG and innovation. So I'm going to quickly touch on those as well. In terms of what is Prolaborate, Prolaborate is essentially the web platform that was built for enterprise architect. So the idea behind developing Prolaborate as an offering was we have spent hours or days or months building really valuable complex information in enterprise architect, and that could be based on any standards, any frameworks, but there is a lot of investment in terms of time and efforts to build such architecture models. But then when it comes to a point where we need to go beyond the architecture community to the stakeholders, there was more often than not, we were asked to go back to PowerPoint to use these diagrams as an image in a PowerPoint and publish it. I mean, this may be not the case in every single organization, but I've spent a good part of my career as a consultant in most organizations. This was inevitably the final step to go back to PowerPoints or Confluences or SharePoints of the world and just publish images of it. That was significantly undermining the effectiveness of the living and breathing models, which has metadata, connectors, complex hierarchies, interrelationships, traceabilities. That's the essence of an architecture repository. That wasn't articulated or communicated very well when it was kind of going back to a simple image. I think a Visio or Miro was doing a very similar job as well. And the reason we were always going back to that step is because of the inherent learning curve that people assume in taking a tool like Enterprise Architect and exploring its features and what is being presented in it. So this was the use case or the core pain point that we wanted to solve, and that's kind of where Prolaborate came into existence. The whole idea of Prolaborate is to not invent anything new, but to simplify, curate, and present all the information that we model, that we spend a lot of time and efforts in modeling, and make it in a readable way, in an easily understandable way to the stakeholders so that they could not only look at it as an image, they could interact with it, they could look at its attributes, they could possibly have a comment or a feedback, they could give you an approval, so that they are also part of continuously building the architecture model. So this also implicitly addresses another major challenge, because architecture is a continuous process. Building a baseline architecture could be executed with all the efforts from a committed team, but then maintaining it and keeping it relevant and managing the transitions, managing the future states is all what makes an architecture practice achieve its importance, kind of manifest itself. And that was also undermined by going back to a PowerPoint or a Visio. So Prolaborate sort of brings those people into the ecosystem where they could look at the models as they are being built and developed and improved, and they play an active role in maintaining it as well. So that's essentially what Prolaborate is. It's kind of simplifying it, curating it, present the data in intuitive dashboards, offer a seamless collaboration platform where they could share their feedback, notify other users, submit their reviews and approvals. And it also has extensive focus on granular access control, because like another challenge with enterprise architect models or any architecture repository is the abundant information that is in there. Like, there could be loads of attributes and loads of information. Not everyone is interested in everything. So we needed a way to cut it down or dumb it down and make only the relevant parts visible. So these were the pain points that we wanted to address. So essentially, there are 4 use cases that Prolaborate solves for architecture users, like people who are developing architecture models using Enterprise Architect. These are the 4 use cases that we essentially solve. The first thing is better focus. By keeping information, just the essential information shown to the stakeholders is the first start. Usually architecture models in its very nature gets overloaded with contents because that is its inherent nature. It has to span across all the layers, like from strategy to technology, from solution architecture to data architecture, process architecture. Essentially, the promise is that it is all going to be in one repository, and by its inherent nature it kind of gets overloaded as well. So what we need to do is have some convenient way to show or hide just the relevant part to the intended stakeholders. So we have personas who would be interested in specific parts of the model. So Prolaborate essentially would let you take parts of the model and build a view that is specific to that persona or that group. And the way it's done is also not technical. So another design mantra that we followed from day one is it should not be technical. People should not be writing queries and scripts to do what they have to do. We are not developers. We are users, after all, normal humans. So we just want something that is drag and drop to do what we want to do. So to be able to share parts of your model, all it takes for an architect is to pick and choose the contents that they want to publish and then assign it to the right group and say what is the level of access that you want to give to them. And that's as simple as that. And when that particular persona or the user group logs in, he or she only gets to see what has been assigned to them. And that could be really granular. It could be a folder or a package, or it could be a specific element. And even more granular, it could even be a selected set of attributes that we could show to individual user groups. So that's the kind of like simplification that Prolaborate will enable. And a very similar or like ensuing use case is simplifying the data further. So why is simplification important? Again, architecture data is going to be complex. Applications, technology components, or capabilities, or processes. There's going to be a whole raft of connectors and attributes, also called as tag values, that we are going to capture. Is every stakeholder going to be interested in every piece of data that we capture? Possibly not. And that's exactly why Prolaborate will be able to take a model like this. For example, a process modeler's view in BPMN could have a whole raft of tag values. There's more than 50 tag values that BPMN specifies, but no one really knows what is exactly conveyed in each of those. Similarly, an application could have a whole raft of attributes that it captures. But what Prolaborate allows architects to do is to just choose specific attributes that has to be viewed or modified by specific personas. Again, this is also role specific. So a role or a user group could only see things that has been given access to them. So you could hide up to an attribute level. You could make an attribute or a tag editable or read only. So you could have that level of granularity, which is what is expected in any modern tool these days. So that kind of granularity on an architecture model is enabled by Prolaborate, and a combination of defining the sections and this level of granularity in terms of defining forms will let the end user have a really smooth experience. So if someone logs into the portal, they only get to see their own set of diagrams. And while clicking on that diagram, that will load the current live model diagram. So there is no publishing, there is no like manual refresh. It just loads exactly the live information that is in the underlying repository. And on top of it, it allows users to click and view and explore the model. So that's where this is different. So it's not just publishing an image in a PowerPoint, it's rather something that is interactive that users could click and see the details. And as you could see, this is the same BPMN diagram that we will see in Enterprise Architect, but the details, the information that we show is curated. You could determine, you could define what gets shown. So this is not the whole bunch of 50 plus tags that is coming out of the standard. Rather, this is business information that has to be viewed by the users. So that's the second key use case where Prolaborate offers very granular access control to define what gets shown to the users. And the third use case is about making this information that is available in reports and charts and dashboards that people could understand. So there's all this useful information in a model. It's more like a spreadsheet. What we do from a spreadsheet is a pivot chart, and that's when it gets really manifested. That's exactly the concept here. So there is the data that is in the model, but then we need to publish those things in terms of dashboards or reports that is easily understandable, that is interactive, that users could use to filter and focus on the specific areas that they want to focus on. So this is the same information, a list of applications in an application inventory of Sparx EA being published as specific charts focusing on specific business problems. And this is where the value of such an architecture model gets manifested. So that's something that Prolaborate adds on top of EA models. And the last use case, I'm going to delve into these in the accelerators part. The last use case is about engagement. As I said, being able to extend the ecosystem to the stakeholders as well, being inclusive with the stakeholders and getting their feedback, approvals, comments, reviews is almost non-negotiable when we are building an architecture repository. And Prolaborate allows us to do exactly that. So every single artifact, element, diagram, connector, people could discuss, people could tag each other's, people get notified in-app notifications or email notifications. So they'll get email to their mailbox if someone adds a review comment or someone has approved a review or rejected something. They get email notifications so that they don't miss it and they can always click and navigate to the actual diagram or dashboards. So it's a full-fledged collaboration portal that's been built on top of the model information. That's where this becomes even more salient. And on top of it, we could have a structured review as well, because review is part of architecture. We need to have architecture review boards. There's various other reviews that we need to run over time to be able to make sure that the architecture content is evolving in the right direction. Conventionally, we used to publish them as documents, email those around, wait for email replies, consolidate them in an Excel spreadsheet, again modify the model, and the cycle goes on. And this is still the case in many teams. However, when we have a way to set up a review workflow on top of a live EA model and invite users to participate in that review, that makes it a whole lot different, because we publish a couple of diagrams that the users get to review. They will have a clear indication of how many days is left for them to complete the review, what others are contributing to this review, and then they exactly have access to the items that they have to review, and they could quickly discuss and approve or reject or suggest improvements using Prolaborate, which will be updated by the modelers And as the models are updated, these diagrams get updated. So it's almost a real-time review on an evolving model till it's approved. So that those are the four primary use cases that Prolaborate solves in terms of an architecture space, in terms of architecture modeling. But now, taking all this, what we have seen is people try to apply model plus collaboration plus reviews and dashboards. There's all these capabilities, which is just tool specific. Now, this second part of my presentation is going to focus on use cases that we can deliver using these functionalities. So here we have a really strong modeling tool, which is like Enterprise Architect, that supports a whole raft of industry standards, extendable, configurable, customizable, and whatnot. And then we have a powerful collaboration, review, and dashboarding tool that sits right on top of Enterprise Architect. So now we have the tool capabilities aligned. Now we're going to take a deep dive into how this is applied to deliver meaningful use cases, because this is what teams need. The capabilities are to support these needs. So I'm going to take these capabilities to just give you an overarching view. Firstly, what is a use case, or why is it important? People in any platform, any tool that you subscribe or you purchase, there's going to be an initial set of time where you have to understand what you want out of this tool and then configure the tool to deliver those use cases. But Sparx EA, with its flexibility and with a very not too like we don't prescribe anything. We would rather say, this supports all the capabilities and you could try to do what you want to do. This has been the approach in the past, which has worked very well. But then when the use cases are growing bigger and larger than modeling and drawing things, when the use cases have grown beyond just creating some architecture diagrams, we are now looking at an evolution. And at this stage, what we are seeing is a systematic approach is required to enable Sparx EA platform in the right direction. So that involves defining use case and understanding the use cases, and then defining a meta model, which is essentially a subset of whatever your preferred meta model is. It could be Archimate, it could be UML, it could be SysML, whatever is the standard or the framework that you are looking at. All we need is a subset of it designed and pre-configured to deliver our use cases. So this is the workflow. And based on this workflow, we've been assisting teams for the many years to achieve their intended use cases. And as we've been doing this again and again, we kind of understood this should be pre-packaged. There should be a way to pre-package them and deliver to the users so that they could go from 0 to 80% in a really short span of time. So if you want to do a particular architecture use case, for example, you want to do application portfolio management, we would like to present an accelerator for application portfolio management that will help you go from a simple Excel spreadsheet to a meaningful EA model with really meaningful dashboards to answer business queries related to application portfolio management. So this was our idea when we defined what we call accelerators. So for each of the use cases that I mentioned in the first slide, we have defined an accelerator. An accelerator is, as I mentioned, things that we have seen every single team doing in a repetitive manner, and we thought that should be simplified because that saves considerable amount of time. And not just saves time, it also gives a clear direction for the teams to get up and running and show value from their initial product investments. If you see the value, get stakeholders buy-in, then the configurability of Enterprise Architect will allow you to extend it and make it your way. So we are not saying it is 100% of what you want, but you could definitely achieve 80% of what industry standards are. And then from there, once you establish a value, once you get the buy-in, then you could build the rest. And that's what this architecture accelerators are about. So we have a meta model that we define based on repetitive, projects, like repeated projects and the number of implementations that we did. Then all the configuration that has to be done to get EA configured for that meta model, the data loading utilities to get your Excel spreadsheets, like which is the common one. Yes, you could plug into your ServiceNows or other systems as well, but 9 out of 10, it's an Excel spreadsheet lying there with a capability map or an application inventory or a data model, whatever it is. There is a way to load it into Enterprise Architect, build the models, and deliver the dashboard. So that's what these accelerators are. And using these accelerators, we essentially start from business queries. So we don't try to go from, hey, we support Archimate, so you need to do Archimate. That's I think not the approach for use cases. So we usually start with the business questions that needs to be answered, and then come up with a meta model and implementation to be able to answer those business queries. So this is where Prolaborate's dashboards and reports and charts become really important, because this, for example, is a very common query. Business interest is, I would like to manage a life cycle of business applications or business capabilities or projects or whatnot. I would like to have a roadmap that kind of lays it out in a structured way so it gives a transparent view to the larger audience. And that's what a Prolaborate roadmap will support. I'm going to quickly jump to the actual dashboard and show these as well. But this is the end deliverable for that business interest. But to achieve this, what do I need? I would need an inventory of applications. I would need an inventory of capabilities. And those applications should have a life cycle information associated with it. So this is how we work backwards from the actual business interest. For example, another use case is, the Gartner's time, which is very common, very often used. We would like to give a view which helps architects ascertain whether the application should have further investments or should it be migrated or eliminated. And to deliver something like this, what do we need? We need an application inventory, obviously, but that application should have a functional fit and a business fit. So, these end results is what is driving the actual meta model that we need. And similarly, we have the a landscape view, which is one of the common or the most popular views, because this simplifies hierarchical information. So an application belongs to a subdomain, and a subdomain belongs to a domain. So we would like to have a domain-based view of my application or a capability-based view of my application. So these are queries that business would like to get answer for, and we know this is how it should be done. So the meta model would have a corresponding relationship to build this hierarchy. So there is various other aspects, like you want to understand the cost of operations of your application. You want to understand the way it's hosted, the data classification. So there's various other questions that usually comes from the business side that we need to answer, and that's sort of what the actual. So I'll just go to my dashboard to show all these are actual real-time dashboards that we are talking about. Let me just go to the repository. So Prolaborate essentially connects to an underlying enterprise architect model. So this is not a separate tool. All these are coming from an underlying EA repository, which has the applications and capabilities and IT components and domains captured for diagramming. So there's also diagrams that we have built for each of these views. So there is an application integration diagram. For example, each of these applications has its own metadata, application type, and data classifications, and obsolescence risk, and whatnot. And this EA model is what is being used to produce these dashboards that are answering the intended business queries. So we have, for example, an APM dashboard, which starts from a roadmap, the time chart, and even a simple inventory view, which is In what we have noticed is, out of all the dashboards, this seems to be the most popular, because this people are familiar with Excel, and this is just giving an Excel-like view or a peek into the architecture repository in an Excel-like view. And users could just apply filters. For example, I want to just see the business critical applications and mission critical applications. It quickly applies these filters and loads these applications. And then I could just share this URL to someone, and they could just click on that URL and get access to these exact applications. And each of these applications are clickable. They could see the attributes, and if they are given permission to edit it, they can even update these applications through Prolaborate. So these dashboards are essentially consolidating all the complex information in easily accessible manner for the end users, and all this whole raft of visualizations that we present. For example, cost of ownership is one very common question that keeps coming, and this is one chart that could be modified or like changed by the users to get various insights. Currently, it's loading the cost based on data classification. So if I want to understand what am I spending on public unclassified applications, I could just look at this. But then if I want to change this to something else, I just go for this drop down, change to, let's say, hosting type, and that will give me the cost of the cost I'm spending on SaaS applications and on-premise applications. So it kind of gives a dynamic view to the underlying model where users could modify and get the intended results. Similar dashboards for business capability management, and where we take a value-based approach. So we align capabilities to values. We have a capability roadmap. We have capabilities aligned to applications. So all the common queries that you would have expected from an architecture tool is what we have built, and Prolaborate on top of Enterprise Architect just enables these things. So that's sort of what these accelerators enable for the common use cases. I'm going to take a slightly deeper dive on ESG and innovation. This APM and BCM and technology portfolio management are the common use cases, and whatever you would expect in each of these have been built. We can there are individual videos which dives into each of these. But what we thought would be even more appealing for the this sector is the sustainable enterprise architecture dashboard, which essentially, so I'll just click on this to open the sustainable ESG dashboard. And what we are looking at is, this is another meta model that was developed to enable sustainable architecture modeling in enterprise architect, which primarily focuses on the capabilities that is aligning with the strategic objectives for sustainability. And then we can also have your ESG or SDG goals aligned with projects and capabilities, and the applications and IT components are now measured in terms of emission factors and energy consumptions and whatnot. So this is a framework that is not a documented framework, but based on a few implementations, we figured out these are the things that is usually expected when it comes to modeling for ESG initiatives and aligning them with SDGs. So if I just take a closer look at the whole story, so what we have done is, firstly, we identified the same approach. What are the questions that we need to answer for having a more green IT strategy? So what are the business problems? And for that business problem, what do we need to model? So we're kind of working backwards to define, we need a strategic objective, we need a couple of capability layers, then we need the applications and IT components and projects and initiatives aligned with it. So essentially we went backwards to define this meta model, and then based on this meta model, we would have profiles that will help us model this. So there's all the predefined uh, attributes. So if there's project, there's going to be project status, there's going to be applications with emission factors and so on. So all those are pre-packaged to define a profile. that will help us build the essential model with ease. So the idea is you could do the same with Archimate, no questions about it. But this is just taking us two steps further with predefined metadata and predefined governance to allow us to develop a focus model. Now, the question is, can I extend this? Absolutely, yes. So that's where Spark systems offerings are quite unique because this whole configuration is given to the user and they can extend it as per their specific preferences. However, the whole idea of this accelerator is to get them from zero to something that will give them a clear idea of how to go about it. So building an architecture using predefined profiles and then publishing them in the way that is understandable. For example, I'm using Prolaborate to publish a capability that is aligning with the strategic objectives. And each of those capabilities could have the current maturity level, the target maturity level, and the importance of those capabilities, for example. And we could actually have these pre-configured in your dashboard. So you could see that the capabilities are colored based on its maturity or importance. And then these can also be aligned with the SDGs. Like and you could have your projects or initiatives that are driving changes to align the organization with the SDG objectives in a simple chart where you could look at it by status or completion dates and things like that. And then we have the IT components documented by their emission factors, which again you could change it on different metrics and analyze it. Instead of just cost of operations, we are just taking a slightly closer view on emission reports and emission data collection. That's essentially where like the implementations that we have been across was focusing on. So again, this is just when the caveat applies here. This is not 100% of what one would expect, but this will definitely give a really good segue to get to a state where there's something tangible to deliver that matches the objectives, and then that's extendable as well. A similar framework was developed for innovation management as well. So in terms of innovation management, we see energy-based initiatives are working towards a lot of standards and compliances, but there's also lots of innovation with all this AI and IoT in place. So there was a framework that is always requested for innovation management. We have developed an accelerator for that as well. Same principle applies, going back to the questions that we wanted to address. That is kind of converted into a meta model. This is primarily focusing on driving innovations and requirements for it, a hierarchy of capabilities that aligns with the objectives can be modeled without any ado. So the thing is, the modeling is not new, but how easy it is to achieve the intended model, which is self-governed, which has all the implicit rules and attributes, and the meta model associated with it is where the difference is. And once the model is done, then you'll be able to present it. For example, a for a for a visualization that kind of shows the innovation readiness in a capability map. So you could see that there is an innovation idea, and against that idea we have a L1, L2 capability, and the granular capability can be color coded based on its readiness. So here it's neutral, not ready, ready. It's just a simple classification, but that kind of gives a lot of insights on how a particular capability is aligning with the innovation idea and where we are with it. Similarly, we could have an inventory view that presents all the innovation ideas in a simple table. Users could filter based on the strategic fit, based on the desirability, based on revenue growth. So there's various factors that users could apply to specifically focus on innovation ideas that has to be included in the next iteration. So these are all dashboards that kind of gives the users the necessary tools to drive innovation. Like project planning and readiness for the next iteration is one of the main goals, and these dashboards kind of gives those capabilities readily accessible. So I'm just clicking on it to show none of these are just images; these are actual published dashboards. So if anyone is interested to take a closer look at this, just drop a note uh, to our Central Europe team, and we'll be able to give you access. This is a publicly published model that you could take a look at and understand what has been done and see how this can be applicable in your case. So whatever I showed so far in the slideshow is the actual dashboard that's been published. And if I just take a closer look at this capability map, you could see that there are neutral capabilities, not ready, and ready capabilities. And if I want to apply filter, I could just say I don't want to see not ready capabilities. I can just turn it off, and that will update the chart automatically, and it only show me the neutral and ready ones. So it's intuitive and it's also interactive. So I could say I just don't want to see agile delivery. I don't want to see AI. I don't want to see automation blocks. It just turns it off and just makes this chart even simpler for the users to quickly understand. Again, each one of these are something that you can share. So if I just want to share this to someone, I'm using a public link which is mostly not used, but I can just share this URL. Another user clicks on that URL, he or she doesn't even have to go through the hassle of navigating through dashboards. They get taken to that particular visualization straight away. So there is as simple as copying a URL and sharing it, and then we can invite them to discuss. It's as simple as that. But the thing is, all these are not just images. These are interactive. People could zoom in, zoom out to what they want. That kind of sophistication makes a lot of difference in the way people engage with the architecture content. So that's what Prolaborate enables at the end of the day. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show in terms of what is Prolaborate and how Prolaborate in combination with the architecture repository makes or helps teams achieve their intended architecture use cases. Over to you, Peter. Oops.
So Tui, can you give me share rights again, because I have prepared the final slide as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we have made now a deeper dive into Prolaborate and its capabilities. Of course, we have invited mainly enterprise architect users, but if you are new to enterprise architect, just reach out for our demo team to also see the other side of the story, meaning the modeling part. Just to give a short wrap up about that, what we have been discussing, it was a little focus on enterprise, on energy sector, of course. So we just try to address the topics that are really hot topics in the energy sector. I just wanted to provide also a kind of secret link. It's not that secret anymore, but it's not well known. So we have this tree radio link, especially to get an access to the dashboards and also to the meta model. And in Enterprise Architect 17, just to give you a heads up already, there is also, and this is new, the meta model itself, so you can adapt it based on that what we provide. So you don't have to reinvent wheels. Please use it as a starting point. A typically increase of your performance if you are going the direction of meta modeling by 3 months at least. And we have pre-built solutions. Some of them you have seen today, and also some other use cases are available on that website. If you want to have turnkey, we also provide Enterprise Architect as a SaaS environment. This is also more or less new story. So if you're not allowed because of your IT infrastructure to host your own Enterprise Architect or even run it, or also Prolaborate, please reach out to our team. We have now a lot of capabilities because of the architecture of Enterprise Architect and Prolaborate, we have also the capability to scale it up into the public cloud, but also in your private cloud if you have a cloud ecosystem. We have some websites for services. Its major focus is enterprise architecture. At the moment, we will increase it. So because in enterprise architecture domain, we have four major areas. Enterprise architecture, as we have seen mainly today, model-based systems engineering. We have also software engineering and also data architecture. And with Enterprise Architect 7, there comes also data warehouse architecture. So if you are also in data warehousing and analytical data, Enterprise Architect provides some capabilities. It's let me name it the first version of it. But if you have Snowflake, Hadoop, or any other Teradata environment in your ecosystem, then you can even bind these details from data warehousing into your architecture ecosystem, so that you have a relationship network that is down to your warehouse, if you wish. If you want to reach out for the newest information in Europe, there is a German site and an English site. And of course, you will find Nizam and me in LinkedIn. Please connect with us. Please don't sell us resources we have. We are providing tools, and we are not buying toners. So please connect to us if you're interested in any further content related to Enterprise Architect Prolaborate. And we are keen to keep you updated. And LinkedIn is currently our preferred platform to share our expertises and latest news. So thank you for your heads up. If you have any questions, it's possible to have it in the chat. As far as I know, last time it did not work.
Now, there is one question, Peter, if you want to look at it. So this question from Richard, since she's saying we need to rely on review process to assure the solution for contractual agreement. How assured can we make the review process through EA, or do we use Prolaborate for informal comments, but still use offline processes for contractual confidence?
Do you want to answer? Should I answer?
I can answer.
Yes.
Richard, so in terms of review, Prolaborate's primary use case is review. Yes, there is informal comments and collaboration, but there's also structured review with a definitive start and end date. And in that period, all reviews and comments that are made by reviewers are documented and that's saved. So anytime you go back to that particular review, that will show you all the discussions that happened and the approvals that happened in that review. You could also export review report. This is very common for people to have a review report for contractual obligations. So Prolaborate's review on top of EA is primarily built for that. And if you want to give it a try, and if you see there are things that needs to be tightened or improved, we are always open for feedback, and we can make the changes. But teams do use Prolaborate reviews for documenting model changes and review processes.
I have an extension to it because just as a thought, we have learned that this always live approach is not what people really always want. They want to have at least a staging approach. So there is a model under development and there's a published model. And for this review process, they typically publish your model. But now it comes to a very cool extension. It's a little hidden on the Prolaborate website, but there is also an add-in for Enterprise Architect so that you can bind your model under review in Enterprise Architect to your model under development, because the relationship is done by the Enterprise Architect GUID, so it's unique identifiers for elements. So you can see the discussion, what is going on during the review and also during discussions that are online. You can combine it with your model under development and even implement or react on it already and create maybe new requirements, or that if you have a formal process, a new requirement for it, or already have implemented it, so that you can take part on the discussion that is for the model under review and say, okay, we have identified it already in the model under development, we have already fixed it, or something like that. So you have a very good possibility to interact even cross stages of your model. So I think this is a very important approach. If you want to know more about how to work with different model versions and variants, so please reach out to us. We'll give you some insights about the built-in features and also solutions that other customers have implemented to achieve their goals.
Thanks, Peter. I think that was a question. And yeah, for more questions, I think they can reach us in the emails that you specify.
Okay, then thank you for attending this session. I give a little bit deeper dive than expected for my personal opinion about the energy sector, but I believe this is one of the most critical things for mankind, and also we want to be part of that story. And we have a lot of energy companies in the energy sector that are using our platform already a long time, and very successfully. And I believe collaboration could be even improved if they